In this episode of The Nation Speaks, from the Rio Grande Valley in southern Texas, this is part 2 of Bedlam at the border. In part 1, we saw the immigration shell game as cartels flood the border with illegal migrants. What else sneaks through?
We really don't know who's crossing our border. We have absolutely no idea.
Meanwhile, locals are beyond frustrated with federal government inaction.
They're our biggest problem, and there's nothing American about what they're doing.
In part 2, Texas digs in. Operation Lone Star is a bold project to shore up the border, but the crisis is about to get a whole lot worse as Title 42 ends.
We're anticipating a mass surge of illegal immigrants coming across.
And new rules for asylum seekers go through.
It will be exploited by individuals who don't really have valid asylum claims.
Then in America Q&A, we ask if Texas is right to do more to secure the border.
And so, no.
They should do it.
They're the front lines.
Absolutely.
It's within their power.
Hello and welcome to The Nation Speaks. I'm your host, Cindy Drucare. This is part 2 of our special series, Bedlam at the Texas border. In part 1, we heard from frustrated locals in the Rio Grande Valley, politicians, ranchers, law enforcement, and others on the river who describe how cartels control the border, and they can't understand why the federal government is allowing it to happen. They say it's a national security nightmare, and they're the ones left plugging the dam. If you missed part 1, you can find it on ntd.com and epochtv.com. In part 2, we look at what Texas is doing to fill the gap under the leadership of Governor Greg Abbott, and how the state is bracing for the next surge of illegal migrants, with Title 42 set to end and a new process for asylum seekers set to begin. The linchpin of Governor Abbott's plan to secure the border is Operation Lone Star. Launched in March 2021, it's a massive multi-billion-dollar endeavor. Here's Governor Abbott on the one-year anniversary of the program.
We began Operation Lone Star to do the job that Washington would not do. Within weeks of taking office, President Biden turned our southern border into a porous mess where illegal immigrants wandered across the Rio Grande without anyone there to interdict them. I refused to stand by and let our state be overrun by criminals, deadly drugs like fentanyl, and victims of human trafficking.
Abbott deployed 10,000 National Guard soldiers and state troopers to the border. He's declared disasters in 53 counties and told the Department of Public Safety, or DPS, to enforce all applicable state laws. That includes a policy of aggressively arresting and prosecuting criminal trespassing and human smuggling, with tough new penalties. Human smuggling is a felony that carries a jail term of 2 years to life, with longer sentences if the trafficking victims are injured, killed, or sexually assaulted. And South Texas property owners pushed to criminalize guiding 2 or more people across agricultural land. John Hubert is the district attorney in Clayburgh and Kennedy counties. He tells us why that is so important.
And the reason why we aimed it at that is because most of our deaths occur in 1 or 2 incidents. One, either they're running from the police with a vehicle and there's a vehicle accident, we have a lot of immigrants die and we have U.S. citizens die, or they're leading them across these ranches, but there's no above ground water, the brush is thick, there's no air, it's hard to tell which way is north, south, east, or west. People get turned around real easy. Water is 8.9 pounds to the gallon. You go through water real fast. Try to carry about 30 pounds of water with you for any type of distance. You can't do it. You got to be smart how you do it. You got to be smart how you ration your water. You got to know where you're going. And what we have is more and more people die.
Hubert says he knows most migrants aren't inherently bad people, but you do have to worry about the ones who are, especially if you live somewhere isolated and far from help.
A lot of us live in very rural areas. Law enforcement is not just a call away. We're isolated, like a lot of us have older parents or older aunts, uncles, that kind of thing. They live by themselves, but I'd say 98% of the people coming across the border are good people just trying to find a better way to job. They shouldn't come over here illegally, but they're not inherently evil people. 2% are really bad. And even when good people are put in a bad situation, sometimes they'll do things out of desperation. When you have people in a bailout, sometimes they steal, they set things on fire, they're hiding out from law enforcement. I've got young kids that go outside and feed animals early in the morning. Is that shed going to be safe? Is there somebody going to be there waiting for my child to come out? And they just don't want to be discovered, and so they do something to my child. there's a lot of fear.
Under Operation Lone Star, state troopers are now patrolling private ranches too. That's new. And in addition to anti-smuggling charges, anyone caught on land without permission can be picked up for criminal trespassing. That's a misdemeanor, but it can still result in jail time and several $1,000 fines. DPS's Lieutenant Christopher Alvarez explains the impact of this Get Tough policy.
The message is very clear that the state of Texas is not just going to apprehend you and release you, into the country or release you to Border Patrol. Right now, unfortunately, their orders are to release people into the interior. Our message is very clear that you come across and you violate a state violation, in this case criminal trespass, that you will be arrested and you're going to go through the proper court system.
Lieutenant Alvarez says DPS has made over 3,400 criminal trespass arrests since the program began last July. Here are some other numbers released by Operation Lone Star as of April 14th. Over 233,000 migrant apprehensions, 13,600 criminal arrests, 11,000 felony charges, and the seizure of over 3,700 weapons, 30 million in cash, and 298 million lethal doses of fentanyl. The fentanyl is particularly important. It's a main focus of Operation Lone Star, to stop cartels from killing Americans. Last year, over 100,000 people died from a fentanyl overdose. That's up almost 30% from the year before, making it the #1 cause of death for 18 to 45-year-olds in America. Going after cartels isn't easy, though. It's a sophisticated operation based in Mexico with precursor chemicals coming from China. They will do anything to sell those drugs across America. Operation Lone Star, therefore, coordinates between state troopers, special agents, Texas Rangers, Marine and aircraft, tactical operators, intel specialists, National Guard, and even Parks and Wildlife to provide additional boat power. Yet despite their best efforts to stop drug smugglers, Lieutenant Alvarez points out that in the last 6 months alone, there were 300,000 known gotaways. That means 300,000 people who triggered a sensor or camera but were never caught. And those are the known gotaways. He says thousands upon thousands more go undetected, and there's no way to count them. It's a constant game of cat and mouse to keep up.
This is an example right here that we're seeing are using these carpet shoes, and what they do is they put this over their shoe to avoid leaving those shoe prints on the ground. And it makes it more challenging for law enforcement to be able to track them, and it just goes back to their intent trying to avoid detection. So these are not your typical asylum seekers. These are the ones that are trying to avoid detection and move further into the interior. And what's very concerning is we don't know who these individuals are. We don't know their criminal histories. We don't know what their intent is and where they're trying to get to.
Another troubling trend has emerged. To outsmart the long arm of Texas law, cartels recruit American teenagers to drive migrants across the border. Here's Kennedy County Captain Eddie Cruz.
Yesterday we had a 17-year-old that was apprehended for human smuggling. He debriefed, and he was recruited through Facebook. A lot of these people get recruited and they're told, hey, nothing's going to happen to you because you're 16 years old, you're 15 years old, or it's going to be your first offense. The feds aren't going to prosecute, which is a reality. But now because of this new law, we have the ability to adopt those cases and file criminal charges on them through the state side.